So hello members and hello non-members. This video is going to be going out for members on the 9th of January and non-members, you're going to get this video someday in February.
Eventually, I guess.
I'm not decided yet, but today I am going to be talking about kind of my issues with having read so many books last year. So non-members, what members get are these more like intimate videos, and they also get some other more highly produced videos, which I'm gonna get a lot more of those coming out, but I wanted to give you guys a chance to kind of see what the members get. It's like an advert. I'm sponsoring myself. I'm not actually sponsoring my... YouTube, I know you're listening to this because you know when I swear, it's not a sponsorship.
You have to cut that part out.
If anything, you know what? Let's talk about why reading so many books was kind of a pain. I'll be honest, and why I'm really looking forward to reading far fewer books. So, as I've banged on in my last two videos, I read 122 books last year. This year, my plan is to read 26. So that's 2 a month. That's a significantly lower number, and will I stick to that? I might go a couple over, you know, so if I'm reading like really short books, I would probably read like 2 in 2 weeks. You know, if it's like a 100-page book, I can finish that. Even if I'm reading at a more leisurely pace, I can finish that in like a day or two. I'm going to be reading longer books and books that, you know, require far more attention. I think a lot of the books I read at the end of 24 required a lot more attention than I gave them. And that's the first thing I want to talk about. Reading that many books, and especially when your goal is to read that many books. Because if you're going to read that many books naturally, that's fine. I think you'll be adjusted better to it. But I was challenging myself to read, what, 40 books in 2 months? I think I hit about 35, 30, and I was like, you know what, I'm done. I'm throwing in the towel. I want to play Final Fantasy instead. Wow. So many, so cool, huh? But the problem was I had to get through some very big, thick books and not give them really the time and attention they deserve. And even though I did that, I reconciled with it because I watched this video, and this video the guy was like, you know what, your first read of even academic texts is going to be like a rough read. You're not going to read it super deeply, super in depth. You kind of like skim through the book, especially when it's a lot of information. But even in doing that, I had to like double it. So I was skimming them, I was retaining the information, but I was like super skimming them. Because I can skim fast because I used to read scripts and stuff for work. But this, I'm just like, go, absorb as much information as possible. And I remembered like most of the books, but I'm sure there were points of the books that I, you know, maybe brushed over at times. And frankly, it's not the best way to read. Again, I'm a relatively fast reader, but even the sheer amount of books I was reading for that the last 3 months of the year was difficult. For example, the month I read all those Murakami books,
Why didn't you stop me?
I read them fast, but I retained a lot more. Although, like, I completely forgot what Sputnik Sweetheart was about because it was like the first one I read in that whole series. But I was reading them fast, but not too fast, because I read, what, 9 to 10 books that month, which isn't, like, crazy. Well, it's kind of crazy, but it's not as crazy as like the 20 books I had to read in like December or something. That was really crazy. So in doing so, it kind of killed that desire to read. And there's a few things that can do that. It can be the actual books you're reading, the quality of the books, which is another issue, which we'll talk about. And then also just the process of reading. So reading in itself is supposed to be a relatively relaxing activity, unless you're like reading academic texts where maybe you might be someone who finds academic texts relaxing. I personally do not. But it's supposed to, you know, help you unwind, help you concentrate, you zone in on one thing. But when your goal is okay, read this, start the next one. It does take you out of it. I was finishing books, like, was it The Book Thief? I think I finished The Book Thief. And then normally when you read a book like that, you give yourself a day to rest and recuperate. I know that the sounds like, oh my god, he has to rest and recuperate after reading a book, but genuinely to like digest and process the book. But then I was like, oh cool, I gotta read the next book. I'm not wearing a watch, but you know, pretend there's a watch there. I need to read the next book. And so you're constantly in this state of what's next, what's next, what's next. You don't really appreciate the book that you're reading. And again, if I was naturally reading that fast, it's fine. But even for me, I was doubling the pace that I would read, and that was already quite fast. And then the quality thing. Look, I bought a lot of books when I worked in a bookshop. I worked in a bookshop around the ages of 17 to 19. I think that's about right. My taste in books, 1, was drastically different. 2, the fact I worked in a bookshop, I was like, I'm gonna buy whatever. If it's there, I want it. Because I was getting 50% off on these books. So back then, books were maybe £8.99, £9.99. So I'm getting these books for like £4, £10. And I'm getting paid bi-weekly as well, I believe. So I'm getting paid and I'm like, oh, well, I'm already here. Let me just buy a bunch of books at half the price, which is awesome. I mean, right now books are super expensive. Like a paperback is at least $11.99 in most places. So I'm just like, okay, let me just buy all these books. So there was a couple of books that I had that personally, if I was being more picky and choosy now, I wouldn't have picked them up. But I decided to read them because they've been piled in my parents' house for what, 6 years, 7 years, and I was like, well, let's just get through them and then I can keep them on shelves or do whatever with them. I'll have to decide that later. In doing so, I did have to read books I didn't want to read, and I watched a very interesting TikTok from a creator who, if I can find the video, it's here, this creator Lean, who basically was like, why do you guys have so many under 5 stars this year? And genuinely, I agree, because if I'm now reading books, well, this year, the 26 books, most of them, I'd say about 80%, will be books that I know I am going to enjoy. Is that maybe bias? Does that maybe, taint the idea of reading widely? A little bit, I suppose, if you think about it like you're not challenging yourself trying a new thing. But also, your time is finite. You spend it doing things you enjoy and occasionally try something new, in terms of books. That might not be the best advice for real life. It's like, don't challenge yourself, haha. Maybe just in terms of books or your entertainment consumption, I suppose. So I get that, and the reason I had 6 or 7 books in my S tier, which you can find in the description and on my main channel when I ranked all my books from last year, the reason for that is just simply because I read so many books, especially in the second half of the year, that were books that 27-year-old me isn't really that interested in. And, I was maybe a little bit kinder in my 2 videos that I put out over the last week as of recording. But genuinely, I think I probably would have benefited from reading more books that were more in line with what I enjoy. I wish I'd read more Hiromi Kawakami books. I wanted to, but I was like, I don't want to buy any new books until I finish this giant stack, like 2 shelves worth of books that I already owned. And that's a financially more responsible way, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I would have reading a book from my favorite woman in the universe, So yeah, that's like the pain of reading so many books. And look, let me just, such a first world problem. it's such a privilege for me to be able to say, oh, woe is me, I read so many books and I didn't like some of them. I understand that is privilege, that is, you know, so, like, not even a fraction of an issue. That's not an issue in the slightest. There is millions, billions of people who wish they were in my position. So this isn't me being like, ooh, feel bad for me. Wow, this is a really bad advert for making you guys want to become members. But it's simply me thinking, for your mental health, you know, sometimes limits are good. Who would have thought? Who would have thought placing limits on yourself might be beneficial at points? So, genuinely, I am looking forward to reading fewer books, 26, maybe 30, I'll push it this year. Especially if there's like a series I really want to get into. I really appreciate some of both the members and non-members commenting on my previous videos, giving me especially fantasy and sci-fi recommendations. Really, really appreciate that. Like, genuinely, you guys got me to read the Evan Winters book and I loved it. So thank you for those recommendations. And like, so I was saying, if I start reading a series and there's like 4 books in the series and I just want to keep reading them, I'll do it, but I'm not going to be like, actually, let's try and read 50 books now, because that's nearly double my goal. And I've finished one book already this month. It was the book on anime. It was far too high level for me. I don't know why I bought that. It must have been one of the books I picked up whilst I worked at a bookshop. But it was literally like a cinematic thesis level analysis of anime and anime film. And I thought it would be like a nice little, oh, here's some anime films and some stuff about them. But no, that was way too high level for me.
I know some of these words.
And because it was a book that I'd picked up in the past that isn't appealing to me now, that's why I didn't enjoy it. Maybe I got it whilst I was at film school because I thought I'd impress myself and I never read it. And so, you know, the next book I'm reading, I either have a little bit of time before the 2 weeks to read that book starts, or I can start it today and have, you know, read even fewer pages a day. That's one big thing I'm looking forward to, because like when I was trying to do this challenge of reading so many books, I was reading like 100 pages a day. And again, it's a first world problem. 100 pages a day is quite a lot, especially if, you know, you're not doing it full time. I still had other things to do. I had other channels to run. I had work to do. I had personal stuff to get done as well. So, you know, it's not like I was studying and the only thing I had to do was have to get through these books. I had other things to do. Now I'm reading like 12 to 20 pages a day, really manageable. I can take my time, you know, if I want to, I can take an hour to read 12 pages. I can take an hour to read 20 pages. I probably won't, you know, I might read 40 pages in an hour because, again, I can read pretty fast. But I have that choice, and that's what's great. It's almost like people having choice is a good thing. Take that political analysis as you will. But that's the video. Let me know what you guys think. Am I the ramblings of a privileged old man? Probably. I say old man, I've already got greys growing on my beard and my hair, so yeah. Thank you for watching. Hey, if you are not a member here, what do you think? Maybe you can join. Members, as always, thank you for being members. I greatly and grandly appreciate your support in everything I do, not just like on the comments, but you know, whenever I post things asking you guys, which thumbnail do you prefer? Or, you know, which title do you prefer? Do you guys actually like this video? Should I put it out? Members get an input into that. It's quite cool that there are people that get to, you know, have an extra peek back behind the camera. Like, this video is like the surface level of what members get, and that's why I kind of wanted to give non-members a chance to watch this, even if it's a month after this video has been made available to members. But Thank you for watching. You know, if you're not a member, like, subscribe, share the video with a friend or family member. And as always, I hope you read a great book today. Not 122 though, like one.